So pores like this are the pores that make me wish, really, that I had drank the wine that I put into the soap instead of using it in the soap. Really, because this one did not really go according to plan. And today's a recipe day, and I mean the recipe in and of itself is good, but I realized as I was pouring the soap and it did things that I didn't want it to do, that probably your first experience with wine soaps is going to be very, very similar to this. And so I wanted to show you what you should do when these things, go bad and it's not fun, and how to fix all of the things. So I decided to go ahead and release this footage anyway. I'm going to tell you more about this footage and the bar and all of the things in just a minute, but before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 60 of 365 days of soap. You're too, and welcome. I'm glad that you guys are here. If you're new here, hey, welcome for the first time. Hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate the shit out of that. Yes, for sure. Now today we are working on a wine soap, and I am giving you a recipe. And as I said, the recipe itself, it's a good recipe. It's just the wine that I used didn't play nice. And there's really no clear way of knowing what a wine is going to do in your soap until you use it. Now, I've done so many wine soaps that I really do know the right types of wine to use in a soap, but this was a new one and it was a local soap, or as a local wine, and I wanted to play with it, and so I ended up with some problems. Now, the problems I ended up with were really acceleration and ricing, for sure. And I get so many questions on the channel and on DMs and in emails asking what a soaper should do with a scent or a soap that has accelerated or riced. Should I throw it away or rebatch it? Well, neither. And I'm going to show you exactly why today. So let's get to the video, and you can watch me, screw some things up, but we can also talk about why that's completely fine. And you can see the end result and all the things as well, and see that in fact it is completely fine. Okay, so I went ahead and decided to go ahead and do this, okay? So we are doing a Sauvignon Blanc for this particular recipe. Now, keep in mind that the Sauvignon Blanc is not necessary. You do not have to use this particular wine in order for your wine soap to, work and be awesome. But I did want to show you the recipe is good, and with other wines, it will work awesome. And there's your recipe. Yes, I wrote it down. Screen cap it. This is how we roll around here. Extra editing is a no-go for me, and I'm sorry. But yeah, so I wanted to show you what you're likely to experience with your first time of making wine soaps. And that is called acceleration and thick, not fun mess, right? And I think the reason why so many people experience that with their first wine soap is because of the type of wine that they use. Now, for the wine in this, I have frozen it. I have not boiled it. I have frozen it into cubes. I hate doing this. It takes way too long to dissolve the lye this way. And I always end up with like little lye crystals, and it's not fun. And so there's that. But I don't boil out the alcohol with my beer and wine soaps. Now, I do for my hard alcohol soaps. I boil out some of the alcohol, but I don't do it for beer and wine soaps. And the reason for that is I don't feel like you're really making a beer or a wine soap if you're boiling out the alcohol, because what's left at the end? Well, sugar is what's left. Well, why in the shit would you make a bar of soap that has beer or wine in it if the only thing that you're really putting into it is sugar? Because you can just put sugar into a damn batch of soap, into every batch of soap. If you want to increase the lather, put some sugar in. And so why would you go to all of this work if you're boiling out the alcohol? And, this is my thinking. Now, that said, well, Mrs. Soap and Clay, how do we know the alcohol survives saponification? Well, it doesn't. But like, think about like making melt and pour, like clear melt and pour, for example. You use propylene glycol, right? That is a type of alcohol. It's not in the same family as like spirits, like alcohol that you consume. That's ethanol. It's not chemically the same, but it does exist in the same chemical class. Propylene glycol and ethanol, and ethanol is what is found in wine, both exist in the same alcohol class, right? If we're looking at classifications, it's not exactly the same chemical formula. And again, two different, but you think about propylene glycol, what is that used for in melt and pour soap? In the clear, it's used as a humectant. And so alcohol in soaps, in cold process soaps, humectant. Sugar doesn't do that. Alcohols do. And so this is my thinking too, that this is why I don't boil my soaps. Wow. This is why I don't boil my alcohols, my beers, or my wines before I put them into soap. Now, you see how quickly this got thick? And this is what I wanted to show you, because I have talked to so many people. This is their first experience with wine soaps. It gets thick and not fun and gross, and they're like, the soap is ruined and I'm going to throw it away. And I'm going to show you, why you should not throw it away, one. But also we're going to talk about probably why I think so many people end up with this as their first wine soaping experience. Now, again, you can use that same recipe that I just showed you, just use with a different wine, and you're not going to experience this. Just keep that in mind. But what I have sort of decided over the years, playing with different wines that I put into soaps, is that the sweeter the wine, the more likely you are to have problems, right? And for the most part, people who make wine soaps for the first time, they're really scared about the potential discoloration from like a red wine. For the record, you guys have seen me make a whole lot of wine soaps on the channel, and red wine, it doesn't impact the final color. That has not been my experience. And so, and you've seen it live, not live, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I think that the reason why so many first-time wine soapers experience exactly this is because they don't want to deal with the potential discoloration and the fear of that in a wine soap with a red wine, which is a dry wine. And so they go with a white wine. And most white wines are very, very sweet. This particular thing is a Sauvignon Blanc, which is considered a sweet wine. It's not, I don't really consider any wine a sweet wine unless you're like messing with like Prosecco, right? I think all wine just kind of tastes weird, just personal opinion. And I don't find any of it to be sweet, but totally when you're talking to like wine drinkers, they're like, oh yeah, this is a sweet wine, or this is dry, or this is woody. And I'm like, tastes like wine. I don't understand. I'm not a wine drinker is the point. But Sauvignon Blanc is a sweet wine. It's considered a sweet wine, mostly. Can be dry, but it's still not going to be as dry as a red wine. And so this is my thinking. Most people go towards, they lean toward a white wine when they do wine soap for the first time. And so this is why they end up with soaps that look like this during the pouring stages. And so they're very quick to just give up and go, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm never going to make a wine soap again because look at that. It's grainy, it's ricing, it's accelerating, it's shit, right? So that would be my recommendation for your very first wine ever. Lean into the fear, use a red wine, and you're going to have a much better experience. But also do keep in mind that if you use a white wine, you are more likely to be dealing with problems like this. And that's gross. That's not fun to mess with. Like, look at that. It's really grainy and ricey and all of the disgusting ease. That's not cool. But don't give up at this point too. Also, if your wine does this, there are a couple of options. You can, I've heard tell that you can take a stick blender to this and break up all of those clumps and make it smoother. That has never been my experience. But this is what the people say. So if that's been your experience, taking a stick blender back to then yeah, you should do that. If you have some cool trick to really de-ricing, do that. I love that. It's never been my experience. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. I have to assume that it does happen, right? But, whatever. You can throw it all in the crock pot right now and try to smooth it out a little bit more. Add some extra liquid at the end. Make it, a fluid hot process and break up, sort of melt down some of these extra little chunky chunks. Sure. Or you can do what I'm doing, and I'm just going to pour it. And this particular pour is for my grapes of Bath. And the grapes of Bath always looks different. And it always has a little bit different of a consistency based on the wine that we're using for it. And sometimes it does this. Not every time, but sometimes it does. Now for really, really thick soap batter, I take a really, really thick skewer to it to sort of meld everything together. And then I just work the bejesus out of it, just really work the colors into each other, try to create some sort of design. It's all crazy. Don't be afraid of your soap batter. Really don't. And yeah, right now still looks, very rustic in form. Now, rustic in form is a whole ass type of soaping in and of itself. A lot of people really love the rustic look of bars, and they kind of gravitate toward hot process as a result, or soaps that were made out of hot process. So there is a market for that too. But also, in the next slide, just for funsies, I'm going to show you what else you can do for kind of a grainier, ricier, more rustic looking bar of soap, instead of tossing it and considering it a total loss, because it's still soap. Let's check it out. Okay, and on to the cuts. Now, this did go through C-Pop and gel, and look at that. The back actually looks reasonably smooth. I've got a little bit of air pockets going on because I was manipulating the batter, but easily fixed when the soap is this soft. But again, the back of it looks pretty smooth. So what does that mean? What does that mean? What happened in saponification? That all of that ricing and weirdness went smooth. The heat cycle does help, for the record. The C-popping totally helps. Really loosen up those little clumps of soap batter and make it all saponify, evenly and all that jazz. But also what you can do with these soaps, especially since looking at the bottom and going, oh, well, that's smooth. So what's the deal with that? Well, I'm going to show you what else you can do with this soap. You can, go ahead and take these little soap bars and you can shave down the actual tops of them. Just take your little planer out, right? I got this particular one from Alex's Custom Soap Stamps. He's great. You should go with him for all of your acrylic needs. Love it. But yeah, just take it to your planer and look at that. It's a smooth bar of soap again. Again, we have some pockets, and so I have to do some work. Ultimately, I don't ever want my wine soaps to do this because it requires more cleanup work at the end. But that does not mean that it's not soap, right? It is still soap. It has still saponified. It still does its thing. It still lathers beautifully. Isn't that gorgeous? Feels great on the hand. And also just a quick rinse with this. And look how pretty that became as well. So I guess it's a double lesson here. Don't be afraid of wine. Use a red wine. And if something went grainy or ricey or whatever in the pour, don't call it a fail. It's almost never a fail. That is a day 60, the wine soap. You should try the recipe, just not with the Sauvignon Blanc. Try a red wine. And there it is, my epic wine soap screw up. And it's not a screw up. It still looks amazing. It performs beautifully. And yeah, give all the bars a rinse and just shave off the top and they're all good to go. The ricing does not actually impact the actual functionality and performance and safety of the soap one iota. Not even a little bit. Also, as you can see with the mixy with the wine in ice, I hate that so hard. Like I don't like it with beer. I don't like it with wine. It takes so long. And I've weirdly noticed that every time I do it the right way, I end up with, ricing and problems. So I don't think that really has anything to do with it. Again, it's just I'm also always testing new wines when I decide to do it that way. And so that's probably more of what that is for sure. If you are interested in any of my wine soaps or beer soaps, I have them both on the website at soapandclay.com. Yes, if you're interested in becoming a sudser, click that button. I told you to do it earlier, but I'm going to tell you again. Click the button. Helps me in huge ways. And that would be awesome. For those of you who have clicked the button and you are my sudsers, hey, you're awesome. Thank you for helping me in huge ways. I appreciate you joining me for another day of 365 days of soap. I'm out of here for today. I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.